for all the media we have, we got a bad habit of being way too myopic. We just get on one thing and that's it. We forget about everything else. The No Kings protests last weekend are believed to have been the biggest single-day protests in our history. Crickets. The ICE mandate shifted. The president put out a message to what seemed reasonable, right? Getting back to what was promised, go after criminals, not those building our communities. But then, all of a sudden, it just slammed back to an extreme position of going after everybody. And then this moment at the G7 summit Monday between the president and the British Prime Minister. Watch this. Nobody's talking about it.
We all know the great Prime Minister of the UK, and we just signed a document. This is, sorry about that. This is it.
A very important document.
Little windy out here. Give me that. We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement with the European Union, and it's a fair deal for both.
That was blank. I mean, you can't make it up. Let me bring back Bill, Stephen A., and James. I mean, it was blank, Bill, and I'm trying to get details on what the deal is. Nobody will talk to me about it. He says at a press conference, we got a great deal. It's fair for both sides. I don't know that there is any deal. What do you understand this to be? How should we take it?
I'm not paying attention to it right now. I'll get around to it. But I am worried about my man, Stephen A. I'm worried. Just three things, and then we'll get to the No Kings. Number one, the Iranians cheated on the Obama deal. Everyone knew it. That's why Trump pulled out. Okay? Number two, 79% of the American people, according to CNN today, supports preventing Iran from getting a nuke. And number three, Stephen A., and this is most important, the Muellers don't deny they have the nuclear capacity. They just say, we're going to use it for peaceful purposes. So we're going to protect the camels with it. We're not going to do anything bad with it. So when you have a plurality like that, what the press is doing, and Cuomo's playing into this a little bit, is saying, oh, there's this big division in MAGA. No, there's not. There are a few isolationists. All of the people who don't want Trump to bomb Iran want the United States to pull out of Ukraine. All of them. Mm-hmm. They're isolationists.
That's true.
Okay, and they're entitled to their opinion, but it is not a mass opinion. All right, no kings. I'm just going to make one point, and then you guys can do what you want with it. 75 million Americans voted against Donald Trump. 75 million voted for Kamala Harris. That was before Trump used Homeland Security to deport undocumented migrants, which has inflamed the Democratic Party and the progressive movement, who don't want that. So what did anybody expect? You think this is new? This wasn't surprising. What was surprising is outside of Los Angeles, all of the other demonstrations were pretty responsible. Mm-hmm. And I was impressed by that. I like dissent. But there's always a context to something, Stephen A., and that is the most important thing for you to understand tonight. And I'm glad I could participate in making you feel better.
James, you still with us? I thought your head nodded down for a second. I thought I lost you. All right, good.
No, I'm right here. I'm right here. Yeah. Well, first of all, it was widely assumed that Iran was in compliance. Now, we can be fact-checked. Either O'Reilly's right or Carville's right. That can be settled by people who have access to information in real time. Secondly, there's always been an isolationist strain in the Republican Party, and particularly in the conservative movement in the United States. We can go all the way back to Charles Lindbergh if anybody wants to do that. I knew Tucker Carlson very well at a time in my life. He was a very good friend of mine. I still consider Tucker to be a friend. What he was saying to Ted Cruz is consistent with what he was saying in the green room in 2002. He's always been pretty isolationist. He's fairly much of a pacifist when it comes to this. I'll let Tucker defend his positions. I'm not here to defend Tucker, but I am here to say that that is consistent with him. And a lot of people beat the war drums to death in the war with Iraq, which turned out to be, honestly, one of the great disasters in American foreign policy history. So before we head first into this, and I'm not saying that it could be something we find as a justification, but we better get our ducks in a row. And before we haul off and start a war with a nation of 92 million people, we better know what we're doing and what are the potential consequences. And they were in compliance.
I'm with you. Stephen A., just for context for our conversation for the audience, the Trump administration had certified that Iran was in compliance with the major points of the deal before he pulled out, right before, like a month before. The problem was that they believed that two things could be true at the same time, which was they were in compliance with the deal to the extent that they could check. But that there was an unknown, and that since then there has been a quick ramping up in their capabilities that is suggestive that maybe they were being deceived at the time, which the Trump administration used as cover for getting out. But let's be honest, Trump got out of that deal for the same reason Biden canceled all the home country deals on the border. It was political payback. That was a part of this also. Stephen, go ahead.
Political payback, okay, that's fine. And, surprise, surprise there, a nation that tried to assassinate our president couldn't be trusted. Okay, so, I mean, there's no surprise there. I think that when you look, I hear what James is saying, and I certainly understand where Bill O'Reilly is coming from. And however, when you look at what Netanyahu was saying and what Trump was trying to say, all I'm trying to say to you is this. If they're close to getting a nuclear weapon, obviously nobody should want that in the hands of Iran. So when Netanyahu says we're going to do everything that we can to prevent it, and Trump is supporting them being on the front lines in terms of attacking Iran, I don't think anybody can deny that. And I think that when you see the isolationists in this country taking the position that they're taking, what they're saying is that they don't want America involved to that extent, because ultimately if Arab nations around the world rally in support of Iran, and I'm not saying that that's the case, but you never know, the point is if that becomes the case and then you make yourself even more of an enemy of hundreds of millions, if not billions, of folks around this world because of the position that you take in your support of Israel. All of those things need to come into play when we decide what we want to do. I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm saying I find it very concerning that it doesn't seem to be unanimity when it comes to that, when it doesn't seem to be everybody's all on board. The folks that are hawkish on the right compared to the isolationists, I don't think there should be a divide. The fact that there is a divide does make things a bit uncomfortable, because now you're looking for what's the greatest side of right here. And then you're looking at the president of the United States, who has his critics and stuff like that, and you're saying, wait a minute, who am I to trust? And that's a huge concern. Then we go to the No Kings protest, okay? We understand what the Democratic Party is doing. They're rallying behind this issue. Obviously, they're they're supportive of migrants and what have you, and we know what Trump's position has been. He's been consistent in that regard, but I think that you sort of protest because you sent in, what is it, 4,000 National Guardsmen and 700 Marines, and you're looking at it from that standpoint. I don't think we see Obama giving a speech about authoritarianism
if that hadn't happened.
If that stuff doesn't occur.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
If that hadn't happened. The fact that it happened was concerning the people, because you're looking at the streets of America being occupied by National Guardsmen and Marines, and that gives the veneer, the complexion, the imagery that we're not comfortable with in the United States of America. And once again, we're looking for answers and we're looking for closure, and we're not getting it from our elected officials. Right. And that's where the discomfort comes from.
Right. And a lot of this is also a little bit of a deception campaign, and I mean that with a small d, nothing too nefarious. But I don't believe there was a trade deal with the UK. I don't believe that the other trade deal that was supposedly made with China is real. I think that they're moving along, but I think it matters. Here's why. Until you act in Iran, and now we're going to go to break, until you act in Iran, nothing has changed. But on the economy, it changes minute by minute because of the trading. And every time Trump says something, it creates a catalytic effect within the markets. So he says he has a deal with Europe. He doesn't. He says he has a deal with China. He doesn't. And it matters because it's going to mess with people's 401ks. All right, let's take a break. They're 2 minutes. I'm going to give them to these guys when we come back. Stay with us. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.